We're here with Sam Schaefer Numismatics, and today I'm doing a video on the subject of Jefferson Nickels. So, many of you have seen Jefferson Nickels before. In fact, I would say most of you, if you are living in the United States, have seen and probably used many Jefferson Nickels within your lifetime. And you'll find, if you're somebody that has inherited a coin collection recently, that there's probably some nickels in it, and you're not really sure what makes them special. So this video is a beginner's guide to the Jefferson Nickel series. I'm going to delve into what to look for when it comes to these coins, what makes them valuable, and what makes them basically just spendable change. So first of all, the Jefferson Nickel first became a thing, a new design, in 1938. So it was replacing the Buffalo nickel, which came before, and it features Thomas Jefferson's head on the obverse, and on the reverse, Monticello, which was Thomas Jefferson's home. So these nickels were made from 1938, and they're still making them to this day, although the design has changed on them. It features a different portrait of Jefferson now, as well as different reverses. There are not any dates within the Jefferson Nickel series that are just outright key dates, just collectible for the rarity of the date. There is kind of one semi-exception to that rule, and that would be the 1950D. So these nickels were kind of considered to be a key date because they're the lowest mintage of the series. As I can try and get this roll open here. I have a little partial roll of them here. And here you can see a nice uncirculated mint condition 1950D. On nickels, the mint mark is going to be right there to the right of Monticello. You see the little D next to America. 1950D, lowest mintage, so it was kind of avidly collected there soon after it came to be. The 50s and 60s were kind of the heyday of roll collecting, and I don't mean like roll hunting like folks do nowadays for silver, but actually putting together collections of uncirculated rolls. Well, it became an investment craze to buy uncirculated 1950Ds. I mean, if you think about Bitcoin, something that went way high and then dropped precipitously, well, the 1950D is a great example of that. These coins got up to somewhere around $1,000 a roll I believe in the 60s. And they crashed. So right now, you can buy a gem condition, an MS65 1950D, which is probably what most of these uncirculated would grade. Maybe there's a couple sixes in there. You're looking at a $25 coin retail. So they're slightly better, but I mean, if you have a circulated 1950D, one that's been used, it's going to be kind of hard to get much of an extra value for that because really the days have passed when they are considered to be very collectible. So probably the most common Jefferson nickel that I see folks save and come in a lot of collections is the Jefferson War nickel, and those are the dingier looking ones I have in here. So these were made from 1942 to 1945 during World War II. Let's see if I can get one in focus here. Here's a 1944. And this is how most of these coins look. They're very, dingy is the only way I can say it. They're kind of a greenish, grimy look to them. Most of them, if they've been circulated, they're going to be like this. And they have like a pasty texture to them too. So what they found in World War II is that they needed to save war material. Now, if you watched a previous video, I talked about the 1943 Lincoln steel cents and how they were made in a different metal composition. Well, the same was actually true of Jefferson Nickel. So they needed to save nickel to make armor plating for the tanks, for instance. So they changed the composition to 35% silver and manganese, and the other, the copper-nickel alloy. So They're interesting, and what they intended to do is and these are the only nickels that have ever been made with any silver in them. So, it's a misnomer that 1964 and older nickels are silver. That's not true. Only 1942 to 45, and they must have, here's the key thing, that large mint mark above Monticello on the back. This one's a D, so this was made in Denver. You're also going to see S's and P's for San Francisco and Philadelphia. Now, the mint marks really don't make a big difference on these. They have to have them in order to be a war nickel, in order to be that silver composition, but they don't add any collectability. It's just the mints are all very common. And for actually have an uncirculated one to show you here, may as well kind of take a look at a mint state one, since I do have one in stock that's pretty nice. In mint condition, they don't look a lot different than a regular, nice nickel. Here you can see nice, beautiful luster on this coin. And it's going to be hard to see in the video, but the steps are actually pretty fully struck on this one, too. And I'll get to that in a minute, but, war nickels are neat. They're not worth a whole lot. There's something that you're going to get between, 50 and basically anywhere from 35 to 75 cents, depending on the dealer. And, it takes quite a few of them to add up. But it's kind of cool because war nickels, you can still find these in change. Most people are totally unaware of this. And, it's not uncommon to find these in the cash registers. I mean, and I've gotten a war nickel in change before. And I know from roll hunting that, buying a box of nickels is a pretty good place to score, because you're going to get some war nickels, and also you're going to get some buffaloes and some V nickels if you're prudent enough to keep hunting. So and I mentioned this on this coin, but I want to get into this now, which is kind of the final thing that makes a Jefferson Nickel collectible, and one thing that is worth looking out for, and that is the strike. So collectors that really appreciate the Jefferson Nickel series are generally willing to pay more for a well-struck example. The key thing about a well-struck nickel is how struck the reverse steps of Monticello are. So, let's see if I can zoom in here. You can see here, this coin probably would qualify as a full step nickel, because you can see all the steps. Now, if you cannot see all the steps, if you can only see, for instance, 5 steps, NGC will grade it like an example 65 5 full steps. And then they'll do a separate designation for 6 full steps, whereas PCGS requires all the steps, all 6 of them are fully struck. 6 full steps are harder to find, and this is one reason the PCGS full step designation carries a, fairly sizable premium. But here's what's interesting. So, coin collecting became kind of competitive after the release of what was called the registry sets. So, collectors can now, some of you that are listening are very familiar with this, but for new people that are just figuring out about coins, serious collectors actually go onto a website called the PCGS Registry, and they enter their certified slabs or their graded coins in basically a competitive format. So whoever has the highest graded Jefferson Nickel set, basically they show up on the leaderboard as the #1 set. So this has really created a lot of upward pressure on the market, and this is something that's changed from generations past where, there was something to be said about collecting a full set of something. There was value in completing a collection. And now, the majority value to collectors is quality, because it's changing. It's all about quality-centric now, and really the goal of having the very finest coin that you can afford, and ultimately to having the nicest set that you can possibly buy. And people take this very seriously. So, with that in mind, it's a competition on some dates of Jefferson Nickels really to get those full step designations. So, here's the one caveat to this. Yes, a full step, fully struck Jefferson Nickel is worth a premium, but only if it is an uncirculated example. It must be in mint condition. A circulated one, the steps are actually going to wear off pretty quick, but even if you have full visible steps on a circulated Jefferson Nickel, it's not going to add a premium because of that upward pressure. Again, the collectors putting these in their registry sets want a full, immaculate, never been used example. So here's what makes this interesting. So I have a roll here. This is an uncirculated roll of 1954S Jefferson Nickels. And this is a great way to potentially get some cherry picks, because most people don't realize how poorly struck these coins are. So this date, for example, 54S, it just doesn't come nice. This is an uncirculated coin. It's never been used before. But look at how dismal the strike is on this. Jefferson's chin is practically concave. It's so poorly struck. And check out the reverse. Can you see steps anywhere? They're not even struck. In fact, most of the facade of the building isn't struck. Now, mind you, this is a coin that has never circulated. You can see the beautiful mint luster. This is unimpaired. This is just how the coin came from the mint. It's just made poorly. It's almost not the coin's fault. This wasn't caused by, per se, a human error, unless you consider that they weren't watching the quality of the machine. But, that's really what it is. It's a machine error. And for whatever reason, 1954S Jeffersons, you just have this issue. They're just not well made. So if you are lucky enough to find a never been used mint condition 1954S, and this is just one example, there are many dates that are collectible, but 54S, say you get a 65 full steps when you send it in and have it graded, or a 66 full steps. You could be looking at $4,000 to $7,000 in value for a nickel. Now, it's tough to do. I've looked through this roll, for instance, and they all look like that. There's no coins in here that are, exceptionally well made. So that just goes to show how hard it is to find a fully struck example of some of these dates. But it can be done. If you look in the PCGS population reports, you're going to see that some people have done it, and they've managed to get a very high grade full step Jefferson nickel, and they've made a lot of money off of it. So I hope this was enlightening and touched on the Jefferson nickel, what to look for. The vast majority of them that I see are just spendable. Anything from basically any Jefferson nickel that is not uncirculated, or is not a Jefferson War nickel, or is not a nickel listed in the official Cherry Picker's Guide, it's just a nickel, and you can spend them. Unless, of course, you feel like building a set of Jefferson nickels, which, although it doesn't necessarily add any value, can be a really enjoyable first set, especially for young collectors, because it's a set that can almost entirely be done by looking through your change. So I always recommend that. And in fact, if you're local to me, I have an office here on the north side of Indianapolis, and I am happy to give away a free album to put coins in. If you happen to be watching this and have a young collector that you would like to maybe get interested in coin collecting, we are always looking to help out the next generation of collectors. So again, hope this was useful. As always, feel free to give me any questions. I'm always happy to have your feedback. I appreciate your likes, comments, shares, and of course, hit that subscribe button so that you stay up to date on my latest content. There's going to be a lot more videos coming out in the near future. Everyone have a wonderful rest of the week, and happy collecting. I'll see you on the next one.